For this project, I'm going to talk about materials that I'll be using. You don't have to have absolutely the same materials. You can substitute or have very similar, as long as you have some watercolor paints in 3 colors, primary colors, some watercolor brushes, water obviously, palette, a pencil, eraser, and ink pen. So basically just very limited supplies. So let me just quickly show you what I'll be personally using for this project. Okay, so I have, I'll start with a pencil, since I'll do the sketch in a pencil. It's Fixo pencil by Caran d'Ache, 3 millimeters. Again, you can use just HB or B pencil, graphite pencil for your sketching. Then I have eraser, Factis, extra soft. You can use any eraser. You can use a kneaded, or you can use a pink eraser, whatever you have on hand. Then I have a black pen. It's by Sakura Micron 03 nib, and it's waterproof. That's for our ink work. Then I have a few brushes. I have 2 brushes that are squirrel. They're very soft. They are from Russia. You can find squirrel brushes in different brands. And I have some of medium here, of medium different variety sizes. It's Rosemary and Coal brand, Anna Mason line. So I have a size 5, size 3, and 1. Again, you don't have to have these exact brushes, as long as you have a little bit of round brushes are great, because we'll be using round brushes, and as long as you have a little bit bigger, medium, and small sizes, that should work. Then I am using, for watercolors, I have White Nights. I've had these for years, and I'm not going to use all of these, and we'll just play with 3 primary colors. So we'll talk about that later when we actually do our watercolor work. All right, next I have postcards from watercolor paper by Honey Mule, and they're already pre-cut. Very easy, and you can directly send it like this, makes it easier, or you can have paper cut into desired size for your card. I have a palette, just a simple ceramic plate. You can have any palette that you have at home, or you can buy a cheap one at any craft store. And I have a small spritzer for just water, in case we need at the very end. I'm still thinking about it, we'll see. Water, of course. I also have a white jelly roll, and we may or we may not use it, we'll see, for finishing touches. And of course, paper towels. You really need paper towels when working in watercolors. I think we're ready to start. Let's begin our sketching. So first, what I would like to show you is that before we start sketching, we need to jot down some ideas. Okay, so we can decide whether we want to use a portrait layout or landscape layout. Since we have one flower to work with, and I just use scrap piece of paper for thumbnail sketches, it's just simple diagrams. So what I did, I tried in both layouts, portrait layout and landscape layout. So in portrait layout, a simple diagram. So I have just a circle to indicate the flower with the stem, and a rectangular box above for the text. And here is also another smaller size box for the additional text. So that's one possibility. And as you can see, I here also did a small and simple thumbnail following this diagram. I have Happy Mother's Day for my title here at the top, and then I have daffodil. So our flower with some leaves and stem, and hard oksana, okay, love oksana. So that's one possibility for the portrait layout. For the landscape layout, here again I did a small diagram. So the circle for the flower and few leaves, then a text box and more additional text. Again, and this is my small sketch, thumbnail sketch to follow this diagram. Again, the flower here at the corner, bottom corner, that I thought was cute, and some few leaves. Now the leaves for this particular flower, for daffodil, they're long. They almost remind me tulip lips, but these are even more narrow. So they're long and narrow, and you can have them branching out from the flower in different directions. And then again the text, Happy Mother's Day, love Oksana. So we have two options, a portrait and landscape. I personally thought I loved both, and you can do actually two different cards if you chose to. It's up to you. There's no limit to what you can do. I decided to go with a portrait layout, and that's what I will be using to teach you how to simply create a beautiful Mother's Day card, very easy to make for any level. So for my postcard, the watercolor card, I just decided not to tape it to any surface. You're absolutely can do that if you wanted to. You could, for example, create a nice edge by taping on all four sides. This one, these cards are rounded on all the four edges. I just wanted to do something very easy without taping it on anything. I just put a piece of scrap paper underneath, and this is just what I will be working with. So let's begin our sketch. So I have a pencil, and please don't press too hard. We are creating a sketch which will be erased, and we don't want to press hard, and that's why I chose a softer lead, and we don't want to create too harsh designs and lines, because they will be harder to erase, and we don't want that. Okay, so let's position our flower, since our text will be probably let's see, maybe taking this amount of space, and we can position our flower beginning from somewhere here. And since our main focus is this gorgeous daffodil, the center, in the center, will just go in kind of jot down a circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's in the shape of the circle, sphere, and so this is going to indicate how big we want the flower. So I want it pretty big, because this is our center of attention. So your circle can be smaller or bigger, it's up to you. Or you can just draw along with me and do exactly what I do. And then from the our circle shape, we have some stem coming out. And then we'll have stem is a little bit narrow thickness, not too thick. Now I'll work on the rest of the stem and the leaves a little bit later. I want to focus on our flower first. So inside this circle we have another small circle, which is the center of the flower. Again, nothing has to be perfect. Nothing in nature is exactly measured and have to have all symmetrical sides. So another small circle. I'm not pressing hard. I'm just lightly sketching. So when we look at the flower, we have How many petals? Let's look coming out from the center of the inner circle, right? So we have 3 on top and 3 at the bottom. So we have 6 petals. So we have 1. I'm just kind of going to place our petals that way. So I'm looking at the center of each petal and direction. All right, so let's see. And now we can form our petals. So right now, just a small oval shapes, and they can come out a little bit of the circle. All right, so just easy sketching. So oval, rounded shapes. This petal is a little bit different. So it goes in like this, and then it extends the bottom of it a little bit off like that. Okay. Now inside of the inner circle, there's another small circle where our little stamens are located. Okay. And let's add more leaves. So we'll add our curved leaf, long and narrow. So it curves, it goes behind the stem and around like that. And let's add another leaf, and it's kind of hiding behind the flower. I think that's okay. This is pretty good. So here I'm not drawing the leaves and the stem till the very edge. So I wanted it to be not ending exactly at the very bottom, but to have some room. I think it's a little bit more artistic and creative that way. All right, let's go back to our, let's see, center, inner circle. So we have a little bit here, some curly. I'm just indicating a little bit what I see and putting it on the paper. So some of these additional curly part of the flower. All right, so I don't want to do too much with my pencil. I think this is pretty good. And we can write just to locate Happy Mother's Day. So we have the placement and location, and then it can be any font you choose. Okay, so I'll a capitalized H. Now everything is by eye. I'm not measuring anything. You can again do something more time consuming, more accurate. And actually, since I don't have room, I'm going to put day a little bit below. Okay. All the pencil lines will be erased, so I'm not worried too much at this point. Okay, so now we are going to be ready to start our ink work. So for the ink work, we are going to use our black micron pen 03 nib. All right. So let's start with our flower. All right, so I want to start with the center. So let's go to the very inner circle. Here we have just an indication there is like these few Siemens coming out. Nothing has to be detailed. We're not making a detailed drawing. It's just a simple sketch for the simple card, and to give some elegance and simplicity at the same time. So to indicate curly with a pen, all you have to do just kind of these rounded curly strokes. And we don't have to exactly draw the line like a contour line, but more like, for example, let me show you here. So we don't want to like draw non-stop the line. We want to break it at times. And you can practice it separately if you want on a piece of paper. It's up to you. Since I have done this many times, it comes a little bit natural for me. But you are going to put your own twist to it. So all of these are kind of curly, and we're going to make them appear curly. And my lines break. So I'm just looking at the photo reference and indicating where I would be putting these lines down. All right. Well, and I think that would be enough. And sometimes you can even shade a little bit, like where you see a little bit more dark. You can also do the stippling effect by doing like dotting in one spot or around the same spot. Okay. So as you can see, when I'm doing in the same spot, it adds more dark values here. All right, I think, and also around this Siemens, not too much. You don't want to overdo the ink work, because then we want to give our watercolors a chance to also shine and do their work. All right, let's walk, not walk, let's work on the petals. So my lines are going to be organic and natural. We are not outlining something. Let me show you on this piece of paper. So here's a petal, right? So for instance, we don't want like draw everything like this outlining. Okay, that will be flat, a little bit cartoonish, and not really found in nature. So nature and more organic shapes, it will not be as straight as you can see, and somewhere the line will break and curve, so it will be more natural looking that way, and the center also can break. And that's what we'll be doing for the petals. So since they're narrowed down a little bit at the top and widen toward the center of the flower, and all right, so just going to look at our flower, and in some parts petals, so we want to see which petals are coming more toward the front and which are toward the back. So this one, the top one, is coming toward the front, and that's why we're drawing the full petal. Okay, here like curves a little bit, and here's the center. So this one appears to be in the back. Actually, I'm going to do the ones that are more to up front positioned first, and then the ones that are hiding a little bit behind toward the back, they will be last. All right, so the next one is this petal. Again, it's wide at the bottom and it narrows toward the top of the petal. Okay, in the center. So that's good. And since our daffodil is, the petals are white, that's another reason we don't want to make thick and straight lines. We don't want to put too much pen work into petals, because they're more airy, they're more elegant and gentle, and that's why we are going to also put the least amount of work for these petals in pen. All right, so let's see which other petal. This one is also more of the front. Okay, and that's our interesting shaped one. It goes a little bit like that. And this is more than enough work for one petal. So the other three are tucked a bit behind. Okay, so they're more positioned behind these three petals. All right, so that should be also easy. And they are nice and not straight. They curve a lot, wavy a little bit. And this one goes like this a little bit and like that. All right, so let's go to this petal. So since they're back, I'm not starting here at the center. I'm starting like they're tucked behind the other petals. And remember, they're wider toward the bottom and narrow a little bit toward the top of the petal. All right, so giving them a cute shape. So these lines go here a bit and here. And then let's work on our last one again. We can just start it from this direction. If you noticed, there are these spiky little indications in the center of each petal. I find them cute. And in some, I'm just kind of giving a hint, not on every little petal. All right, so like that. And there's this goes here and here. And I think that's enough for the petals. And now let's go to our stem. So stem can go up a little bit here. And again, I'm not making even lines, and they're not the same thickness at the same time. It makes it more natural looking, I think. All right, so our leaf in the break and goes behind the stem and like that. Maybe give them a little bit this, and another long leaf hiding behind, which we can't see. So that's going to be our sketch for the flower. And let me also outline Mother's Day. So then I don't have any pencil lines and not going to interfere when we start our work in watercolors. So as soon as I'm outlining and done outlining, I will erase. All right, now the fun part. We can erase everything and we'll start our watercolor work. So I'm just going to quickly erase, and then I'll return with watercolors. And now it doesn't have any pencil lines left, just our pen work, the pen lines. I can put a pencil and eraser away And that's why another reason, when you erased, if you noticed and you used a waterproof marker, it doesn't smudge either. And that's the beauty of the watercolor archival ink. It doesn't smudge, and you can erase on top of it quite easily without any worries. And so the same with watercolors. Once we will apply watercolors on top, we don't have to worry about ink running because it's waterproof. So that I really love this feature of our black pen. So now we are going to work with our watercolors. So since I'm going to start on base layers and watercolors, I may need a little bit of a bigger brush. So if you have a round 6 or 8 size round brush, this one is 9. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly the same I'm using. We are just going to lay down our first initial layer, let it a little bit dry, and then put a few other layers. And watercolors are great in this sense, because you can layer as much as you want, and the more you layer, the more beautiful and more vivid it becomes. With these watercolors, these are a lot of them transparent, so they create really nice effects. All right, so since I told you we will be working in primary colors, so make sure you have a yellow, red, and blue. Now every yellow and every red and every blue have cool and warm tones. So it's up to you what you'll be using. I do recommend for the daffodil, it looks on the warm side, so I will start with a more warm looking yellow. Now, don't ask me to give you colors, because I'm not sure what these colors, I haven't used these watercolors in a while. And I mean, you can look up the colors online if you wanted to, but because this is not a video where I'm focusing on specific names of colors, but more of just the process, because you can have any yellow as long as it looks warm enough, and any same with any red and any blue that you have on hand, because I want you to use what you have already at home, and without relying on specific given colors and brands, because I want you to be able to create this card for your mother on Mother's Day, and make it a very special touch. So I'm just getting a little bit, I don't want the pure pigment. So if I just went with my brush into the yellow, I would pick up pure pigment, and it will be pretty creamy and rich. I don't want right now, because for the base layer I'm watering down with water to create this kind of pale yellow color. And I'm going to cover the entire center with this color. And try not to put too much. If you notice you have too much water and too much, it's like really thick, and you don't want that, use a napkin or a paper towel to just dab in it a little bit, going back and picking up all this, stretching it out, and making it not as watery or runny, unless you really wanted to make a more loose effect. I'm not telling you exactly what to do, because I want you to go with your own gut, with your own feeling, how you feel that you want to make this flower look. This will look brighter and richer, trust me. And I want also to put also the same color on the petals. So again, it will be very pale, and I'm going to put it at the base of each petal, I think, like this, but not covering the entire petal, just where I find it Okay, where I see the warm, where the light brings the warmth on each petal. So here, a little bit of here. And when I feel like I'm out of color and out of watercolors, I just go back into my small pool of pigment and reapply it. A little bit here, here, and let's put some down here as well. So I'm being very light in applying the color, very light, as you can see. I will rinse my brush. So another tip, very important to keep in mind, when the petals that are behind, right, kind of glancing out and peeking from behind, they will be a little bit more on the cool side, because anything that's up front will create a shadow to the petal that's in the back. So we always want to make the background or anything toward the back more shady, since that created the front petals create additional shades and darks. All right, so I'm letting it dry. Let's create our light green color. So with the same color, so just pick up a little pigment. You see how bright it shows? So I want to water it down. So I just dab it into the water and dab. And now, let's see. Let's pick up some blue. All right, some blue, and actually this is very little I'm mixing. I'm going to pick up a little bit more yellow, because I can always water it down. And let's bring some blue to make the desired, so that's too much blue, so I'm gonna put a little bit more yellow, a little bit more, a little bit more blue. So I repeat this process till I'm satisfied with my green color. A little bit more yellow, let's see, a little bit more blue, that's good, because if you look at the daffodil, the stems and the leaves are on the cool side. There is a lot of blue in them, so we'll water this down a little bit more, and that's what I'm going to put down for a base. So I'm just going to cover the entire base here for the stem, entire stem, and the leaves. Okay, so this is good. I'll let that dry, and since we worked on this, I think our flower dried more. So I'm going to switch my watercolor brush. This is already a little bit too big for me. I am going to switch to my number 3 brush. You can use number 4 or 2 if you prefer, depending on what size of paper you're working. So now we're going to bring our red into our palette. So we'll mix red with the yellow to create a nice orange color, which you can see in the center of our flower. All right, so let's pick up some of that yellow. Now it's going to look very bright. We will water it down once we get a desired orange color, and then we'll go and pick up some red. Let's see, is that orange enough? Maybe a little, oops, I think I got a little bit into the blue. Let's pick up some more yellow. Oh, I like that. Okay, so when you have a desired color, let's water just a little bit down. Put a little bit of water, tiny bit. Okay, and we are going to, let's see. So we want to make sure we leave the center, those three stamens in there. So we're going to cover everything that we see that looks orange. And we'll bring more red into here and more yellow into the center, and a little bit more green for the shadow parts. So we want to put down where we need to our orange color. Okay, so next, while it's drying, let's get our yellow, and I will not water that down as much. I'm just going to dab onto the center stamens, so they're nice and yellow looking. And while this is still damp, I'm going to add a little bit more of that yellow with a dab in it, not too thick, okay? And putting it into this orange looking color while it's damp, it will create a nice effect. So just dabbing it into the more light areas. As you can see, it dissolves into the orange, which creates nice effect because it was wet. So this is called wet on wet technique. So while your paint is wet, you apply more wet on top of it, and it just creates these beautiful flowy washes. Okay, so now I want to pick up, let's see, so what I want to do next, let's get that yellow mixed with blue, and that green, let's water it down more, or you could go into your previously made green, doesn't matter. I see some, actually let's add a little bit more blue. I want it on the bluer side, but not too bright. I want to dilute it with water, so it looks like that. And more water a little bit, but I don't want too much on my brush. We're going to create some shadow areas on petals. Let's see, we can test how bright that looks on our paper towel or napkin. So that looks too dark. I'm going to add more water for our darker parts. So more water, let's test that. It's a little bit better. Let's see. Yeah, better. Okay, so now I'm gonna pick up that color, not too much, okay, on your brush, and anywhere I see the shadows, I will put those, apply them as well. So just over here, then here, and it's okay if you see some of that orange color bled into the petal. That's actually even better if it does it. Okay, so let's see. So I see a lot of anything that's in shadow right now can be applied like this, okay? Let's see where else we see shadow here and here. Now when the watercolor dries, it may seem like dark right now to you. Once it dries, it will not look so dark. It always dries to the lighter shade. Okay, let's see a little bit of here and here. and also over here. If you do find it like too dark, what I can do, rinse off my brush, dab it on a piece of paper towel, and just go back and soften the edges. And that way it will be not so harsh looking. Okay, now I'm picking up back more color to continue adding shadows. So here and here that I see. Picking up more color, mixing it on the palette. Okay, then I see this part in the shadow. Okay, and here. You'll also notice the smaller brush you use, you tend to pick up more paint because of the size. Since it's a small brush size, then the paint goes quicker. So let's see here. I think I created a little bit of the harsh line. I will rinse off my brush, damp a little bit. Dab on the paper towel and soften. So at this time, at this point, our center of the flower has probably dried. So I want to put more orange color in. And this time I want a little bit more red. So I'll pick up a little bit more yellow. Put red. Oh, that really came out bright. Let's see, put a little bit more yellow into this. That, you see what happens when you go and get a lot of pigment. It's really nice, bright and rich. So the more you water down, you can build and build lots of layers, and then that's what makes watercolors pretty unique, in my opinion. All right, so let's see. I'm going to dilute a little bit more, but not too much. I do want these nice bright colors to appear where I see them. Okay, so it's going to be, this color is going to go right here on the edges. Now you probably noticed it's a very watery, so I'm going to dab it and go back and like soften the edges. So I will go back there. We don't want too much paint on our brush. So let's see. Now they may look like very hard edges. We can always soften them. So let's see here. And that's probably, I think, what I'll do. I will soften them. Okay, so just add in some of these pretty colors into our... So I think maybe even a little bit more brighter. I'm feeling a little bit more courageous here. I want to add a little bit more red. Okay, ooh, let's see. If it's too much, again, oh, and you can always double check the color. Oh, I like this. Okay, so a little bit now, wet on wet. It will just dissolve into that orange. I like this effect. I like wet on wet. It's really cool. So by dabbing it, I'm not doing lines, I'm just dabbing it that color by dot dot dot, like that, dot dot. Now I do want to create soft edges, so I'm looking at the photo reference and I see more orange in the center. So let's add that orange, more orange. I'm watering down. This looks like a nice orange. Let's check it. Yeah, very nice. And I will put it in the center by dabbing it also. Okay, a little bit more water. Okay, but it has to be a little bit lighter color than that red and more orangey. If it doesn't look more orangey, just add more yellow. If you notice, like just working with these two colors, you can create a variety of tones and shades. Okay, I'm putting more yellow into the brighter parts. Okay, now I want to see, so the way for our center stamens to really pop out, we need to create a shadow around them. And that will help us if we put a little bit of this bluey green color. Let's put a little bit more blue, and that will be nice shadow. Okay, checking it, and don't want to have too much on our brush. And we're going to create that shadow again by dotting it. Our paint may still be a little bit wet, which is okay, but just by tiny dots. You see how it just goes and dissolves into the outer sides. Okay, and I think this is done. I don't want to overwork it. I like as it is, but I do want to put more shadow on the leaves. As you can see, dried those petals, and the leaves are a little bit boring looking. So let's if we want to add more shadow on our petals, we can do that by having this again bluey green, more on the blue side, cool side. And we're only going to add just not a whole lot, but a little bit where we were before. Now remember, some of those leaves that are behind, going to probably include more shadow. We don't want to overwork these because they are white after all. But you don't see, white is never exactly the same white, and anything that surrounds it will reflect on that white. Okay, so this is in more shadow. I will soften these. Right now it may seem to you like very dark, so I will rinse off my brush and I will soften these edges. Okay, I'm trying to be fast because watercolor dries fast on smaller projects. Okay, so if I need to pick up color, you can do that with watercolors by rinsing off your brush, dabbing on a piece of paper towel, drying it, and then you can, while the paint is still wet, you can just go and try to lift up that color. If it's not wet, you can wet it first. Okay, like this. I wetted it with water, and then I went with dry brush and picked up that color and softened it. So I want to soften this as well. I don't want entire petal to be green looking, so I'm just softening everything right now. Okay, so now we are going to put a lot of value and volume into these leaves and stem, because they're so much darker. That's what going to indicate that this flower is actually light color. We're going to really make these leaves and the stem pop out. So we're going to mix again blue with yellow. Okay, that's good. We're going to cover. So right now we're covering again on top the entire stem and leaves. It already darkens, as you can see. Let that dry, and into the same wash we're going to put more blue, because there's a lot of blue shadow, a lot of cool shadow where the blue is more prominent. So don't be afraid if it's looking a bit too blue. You want that those shadows really pop out. So now it's okay if it's dried, but not a lot. It may still be damp on your paper, and it's okay. So now if we look at the I gotta be careful with this plate. Look at our photo reference. It goes so the light shines more on the left side, and the right side of the stem will be more in a shadow. So make sure you're only applying it on the right side of the stem. Still making sure your previous green is showing through. Let's work on our long narrow leaf again. So this is going to be dark. Make sure you separate this leaf from the stem, and here put in more shadow, and look at the reference. So here as the leaf turns, it goes also in a lot of shadow here. And that's why I like this small size brush, because you can really maneuver and have no trouble with smaller areas like this. And we're going to add more on the right side of the leaf here, just like that. Now with the same color, I'm going to put more shadow into the center here around stamens, because we want them to pop out, okay? And a little bit of shadow, probably a little bit here, and we'll soften that. So the leaves that are behind, we want them to be behind looking, okay? So now I will soften these lines. Rinse off the brush, go over and soften the edges. Making them nice and soft, disappearing into a larger area. All right. So I think we're pretty done here. If you do want to make even darker here, actually let's darken our stem and leaf a little bit more. So blue and yellow with more blue in it. And here I'm directly going to the pigment, not being afraid. And our consistency is creamy. Even more blue, let's see, like this. So now we're really going to brighten that. It's creamier, more opaque, not so much, you saw me not really diluting it with water. And we'll just put in, not just in few areas, few shadows, okay? Look at that. Now our flower really looks like it's on the lighter side. So once it's drying, while it's drying, we can also do the Happy Mother's Day with the same colors that we have, so we're not wasting them. I like the orangey looking color. Now I'm just going to apply this color on my font here, like I am drawing with the paint, writing with the paint, just going over. You can be creative here. You can have every other letter alternating with different colors, or you can do it all in one with different effects. So it's up to you how you want to do it. Oh, and let's see. So I like that. I will put probably a little bit more red, and put them like red and at the end, bottom, not end, but bottom of each letter, to create this kind of gradation, natural gradation. Okay, and it works nice while the paint is still wet a little bit, so it will flow nicely. Okay, so just like that. Oh, I think it was from erase. It's all right. Actually, let me see if I can quickly dissolve that. Voila. Okay. All right, so now I am going to get my white jelly roll pen, and add some, like, make sure everything is, since I'm working on a small scale, everything dries very quickly. I'm going to add some highlights on the flower. So I see some highlights on the petal that I want to add. Not a lot, because I did leave a lot of that white actually, so not much corrections I need to do. But if you had a lot of dark, that's where this white pen can be handy. Okay, so I'm not really adding too much corrections, just a little bit where I see needs some light, and maybe even on the stem. That's it, just a little bit, not much. Now if we wanted to create some splattering effect, what we'll do is making sure what color we want. For example, I want these orangey colors. I'm gonna make a pool of that, just kind of dissolve everything, making a nice watery pool of paint of this color that I want. Add in more color. So I want to make sure I have a lot of paint and water on my brush. And what I do, I'm gonna tap it against the finger. Tap, 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 and it creates these cool splatters. Okay, not a lot, just a little bit. Now I want some of this one. I'm putting more water, making it nice and watery, and adding some of the bluish colors. Tap, 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 tap. So, all right, I think that's good. If you have a what's that called, the toothbrush, you can do that with the old toothbrush. That will create the same similar effect, splattering effect. And I forgot, but you can do that earlier while you're in the sketching phase. Love, Oksana, love, and then Oksana straight with my waterproof pen. And while I still have this paint, I'll just color the heart Oops, let's see, with the red. And let it all dry, and the card is finished, and it will create a nice touch for someone you love, or your mom. And it's simple yet elegant, and also from your heart. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and maybe you can create the same. I would love to see your artwork. Please post your flowers or your cards. I would love to see them.